Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast that we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Available now on YouTube, so head over there and smash that subscribe and bell notification button. We're also available on Spotify, Anchor, if you prefer the audio versions. And we have a very special episode today where we have a guest on who many people will recognise from the League of Ireland. A man who absolutely bleeds the green of Shamrock Rovers without a shadow of a doubt, Mr. Robbie Gaffney. Robbie, how you doing?
Niall, in top form. Looking forward to Friday night, which is effectively the start of the new season, albeit without the fans, which is in itself is mad. Even saying that, Niall. So the President's Cup final is on Friday night. Rovers against Dundalk, and it'll be streamed, which in itself is mad because normally, Niall, that would be a night out or a day out, if you know what I mean. And the fact that nobody is going to be there is the strangest. And it sums up, which has been a mad year. You know.
It's been a crazy year. We actually just did an episode there the other day with a couple of fans from the League of Ireland who were heading up this campaign, this Head in the Game. I don't know if you've heard it. It's about tackling mental health awareness.
That's correct,
and, we were having a discussion saying it's been such a tough year. Like if you're a football fan, especially, it's been such a tough year because, you know, you work all week, you earn your few bob and you're going to go see your team play at the weekend or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to be denied that, it's a killer on people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, well, that in itself, but look, it is what it is, Noel. Maybe we're near the end, I don't know, but look, we'll see how it goes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose we'll start at the beginning before we get into the career. Where did the love for Shamrock Rovers begin?
Well, the love for Rovers began, Niall, about, what would it be, 2 miles from the house, from Mulvey Park. Mulvey Park, if for anyone was effectively, it's down as Dundrum. It's also in Windy Arbor. We've got, I think we've 2 names against it. But within the enclave of Mulvey Park, which in itself was football mad, Rovers were the local League of Ireland team. And as it happened, you know, growing up in Mulvey Park, Rovers had a fantastic team at that particular time anyway, where the only downer would be that you wouldn't have got many European games in Milltown. They were all transferred to Dalymount or Tolka. But it came from going down as a kid, from going to school in Columbanus and making your way down to Milltown, and then playing football in the area, Noel, because I started my football with Rosemount Boys, which is now known as Rosemount Mulvey, you know. So it was that era, that, you know, having nothing else in terms of football, and Rovers were effectively for us the Barcelona of Irish football, you know. So that's where it came from first, in the area, from my dad, handed down my eldest brother and my other brother, you know, Packy Gaffney as well. Yeah. And I've handed it on now to Robbie Gaffney and Junior and Jason Gaffney, you know, both members of the club.
So this is a proper family tradition thing, really handed down.
Yeah, I'd know where to go on this, Niall. I'd know where to go on it. This was handed down from the dad all the way, you know.
So you follow Rovers or you were moving out, was it?
That was effectively it. I was going to say, or you wouldn't get your dinner, you know, so you wouldn't be fed. So it was a case. Yeah, but I loved it anyway. Niall, I loved it. You know, I loved going down to see the players that someday, you know, they were my heroes. You know, Frank O'Neill and the way, you know, Mick Leach, different class. You know, brilliant players, brilliant era, and really lucky to be able to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So then I suppose, you know, moving on to the career then, 1976, going to Shamrock Rovers and signing for them. I mean, how did that feel from a boy being on the terraces, let's say, to pulling on the actual shirt? What was the pathway to that?
It was surreal, Niall. I mean, the fact that I was playing for Rosemount, and I remember we played a really good home farm team in Rosemount in a cup game. Even playing home farm for us as Rosemount, you know, we're trying to pit ourselves against the best. And we did very well that particular day. And after the match, a guy just came out of the blue, you know, gentleman, lovely man called Sean Carroll, came out and he said, Robbie, would you be interested? He says, in coming down to Milltown um, to go on a trial. And he says, I'm going to invite a couple of players off the team. So myself, a guy called Larry Wise and Brendan Flynn went down to for the trial. And on the trial, Niall, I had one of those games where I couldn't put a foot wrong, you know that way. And I still thought, no, hold on, this is Rovers, this is not Rosemount. You know what I mean? Yeah. And afterwards, they liked everything about it. And the manager at the time was Sean Thomas, and he said to me, you know, would you sign? And I just couldn't believe it. I remember I had a chopper bike. The lads often slag me to this day, Niall. This was I wasn't getting into a Bugatti or a Porsche or whatever. I was getting up to a chopper bike, flying up the Milltown Road to get home to tell my mum and dad that Rovers have offered me a contract to play for them. Sure, I think my ma ran up the road into her auntie. I think they had a night out on it, on the fact that I'd even been offered a sign, and it was a dream come true, Niall. I mean, to sign for Rovers and be offered a semi-professional contract, I'd have played for nothing, Niall. You know that way. Like for me, this was dream, you know, boyhood stuff. Yeah. So that's where it came from. You know, it was unbelievable. There was no decision.
Yeah, I can't imagine you at the time pausing and going, listen, I just have to ring the agent there and see what's happening. And how was the dad with it? I mean, he must be proud as punch, was he?
I mean, I probably have one of the best stories in terms of Rovers and how what it meant to my dad. Niall, my dad worked in CIE, Donnybrook Bus Garage, right? And at the time, it was a driver and a bus driver and a bus conductor. That's today, right. Now you're all in one, but in my dad's day, it was right. And Tom Geraghty was the driver, and Paddy Gaffney was the conductor. And there's an incident when we played Limerick in the Cup, when the 86 bus, and you might know the 86 bus at the time went by Renla through to Slorgan and out to Bray. That was right. The route, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And we were playing Limerick, and my dad had about 3 passengers in the bus, and he went to them all at Sanford Station in Renla and said, is it all right, or would it be possible if he took the bus up to Milltown, that his son was playing for Rovers against Limerick in the quarter-final of the Cup, and a big double-decker bus, the 86, was seen coming up the Milltown Road, and he had to do a 3-point turn, Niall, with Tom Geraghty to see how I was doing. And I'd scored that particular day, and the grounds were letting in, and the 3 passengers were looking at the top window to look in. I mean, he'd have been sacked today under GDPR and compliances, and brought the 86 bus back on the route and back out to Bray, and Rovers were in the semi-final of the Cup. That's how much it meant to him, Niall.
You know, isn't it?
Yeah, took the 86 bus off the route, because at the end of the game, the groundsman, when I was leaving the ground, he said, by the way, Robbie here, your dad had his bus. I said, he had his what? His bus outside. He took the bus off the route to see how he was going. You know, that's how it meant to him. It was brilliant. He was made up.
So that must be the one and only time in the history of CIE that the 86 bus went up Milltown.
Without a doubt, and I'm telling you, Niall, he would have been hung, drawn, and quartered by the CIE headquarters on it. But he got approval from the 3 passengers. They were all fascinated to see, and then the fact that I'd scored. So it was a win-win. But that's how much it meant to him, and you know, and for me to hear that, I just have this image, Niall, because to get one of those buses, double-decker, up at outside Ramley Park, that was a proper 3-point turn. You know that way, to get it around. Yeah. And get it straight back onto the route. Yeah, so that's what it meant.
That's not. It wasn't the same road then than it is now, where you could possibly swing a bus around. But
I was going to say you do it with your little finger now with power steering, but not then, you know.
Yeah.
But that was brilliant.
Yeah. So when you look back over your time in Rovers, I mean, tell us some of the highlights in terms of some of the players you played for. I mean, I know you're going to drop some names here now that are the who's who of Irish history football, really, you know.
But there was a chapter now. You see, Sean Thomas, I'd only played sort of a year and a half with Sean Thomas with Rovers. And I was made up, Niall. I was made up. But then the word came at pre-season. The word came at pre-season that there was a change taking place and that Sean Thomas was either going and there was something big about to happen. And again, didn't bother me. Sean Thomas was a lovely, lovely, lovely man. I enjoyed whatever. The next thing is now we got wind. I was to this day friends with a guy called Alan O'Neill, who was the goalkeeper. And Alan O'Neill rang me and said, Robbie, have you heard the news? I said, no, this is before social media now. And he says, it looks like Johnny Giles is coming back from West Brom to take over Rovers and double up as the Ireland manager as well. I said, what? He said, yeah, Johnny Giles. I said, geez, Naylor. I couldn't believe it. So we were told to report for pre-season, Niall, and it was the first time I'd me chopper bike again, parked at the corner, and the next thing, an entourage of cars, English registered cars, arrived for training. Giles in the big 5 Series BMW, English red. Ray Tracy, who was the centre forward of Preston and or West Brom at the time. Eamon Dunphy, who everybody knows and whatever. Owen Hand, there was a myriad. And then the couple of lads that they brought from West Brom, a winger called Stevie Linux, another lad from Leeds, Harkin. It was unbelievable. I thought, Niall, my days are over now. You know that way. That this is a different operation, and so no, it was extraordinary. And not only, Niall, was it extraordinary that he would come back and manage a League of Ireland team, but his profile and everything that he brought with him, like the press was all over Milltown that night. The fact that Giles had left West Brom. They had done very well in West Bromwich in what was the first division then, and here he was managing Shamrock Rovers. So it just for me, this is boyhood stuff, Niall. Yeah. I just wanted to say, will I be kept? Will I be around? That was or is it over?
Yeah, I'm sure no doubt when the news broke about it, there must have been a nervousness in the squad as well as an excitement. That he was coming in at such a level. But also, if he was bringing in these players, what would it mean to the group of players that were currently there?
Absolutely. You have to understand that he was also the Ireland manager. You know what I mean? So the profile that he now had, I mean, he was different class player anyway. If you go back to his Leeds days and his West Brom, he was different class. He was held in huge esteem, huge regard, Niall. And here he is managing Shamrock Rovers, and everything that goes with that at the time. This was a new chapter in Giles's head, and indeed for the Shamrock Rovers fans. I mean, after the news broke, Niall, that our first training session was jammed. Till eventually it died down and we started training down in UCD. But at the time, the interest was unbelievable. Fathers bringing their sons and daughters down to see this. This is the bit. Been stopped outside after training. I'll been asked for your autograph. Come on,
yeah. Or even probably the press at the time hounding people for information.
Press. You have no idea. Absolutely, asking for your number, your landline number. That way. Yeah. Not your mobile number, your landline number. It was unbelievable. And then as a result, we did the first pre-season, and some of the lads I'd signed and played for under Sean had all gone. But I was steeped, Niall, that myself and Alan O'Neill were kept on. Giles offered us a contract. Sure. For me, I'd won the lotto then, Niall.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, I'd won the lotto and everything that goes with it. It was brilliant. Yeah, he was different class. Class.
It's mad to think the pathway, isn't it? Going from being like, the history of your family following Shamrock Rovers to like debuting for them and getting a contract. And then all of a sudden one of your heroes comes back to manage the team. And, it's that chess game where you couldn't put a foot wrong, really, isn't it?
No, I'm telling you here now, honestly, you could not write the script. I remember after the first training session under Giles, coming back through Mulvey Park with me Umbro bag over my shoulder, and I was getting pats on the back for training with Rovers, if you know what I mean, because the profile had gone through the roof with the club. You know, I mean, Rovers per se anyway normally attracts within Ireland a huge level of interest in the domestic game, but now all of a sudden with what Giles had brought and the entourage with it, it was even 10 times more. It was brilliant, brilliant, Niall.
Yeah. There was probably even a big interest even across the water, because it would be seen as kind of an unusual move, really, to go from West Brom then all the way back to Shamrock Rovers and stuff like that. And it's kind of, they were probably trying to figure out what was causing this move and what was this big, this big boost over in Irish football at the moment. Because I mean, you have
it in one. No, you have it in one, because not only was there the interest, like we played, and I'm thinking now, remember, Niall, what I said earlier, Rosemount, going to see them on my chopper or something like that. And then I remember playing for Rovers on one occasion when Giles had brought the Liverpool team who won the European Cup to Milltown of a Tuesday night. So I'm now looking at Souness on the other side of in the dressing room, Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush, and all these. I said, here, this couldn't be happening. That's the profile, and you know what I mean, that he brought. He was able to pick the phone up, to Bob Paisley or whatever it was, or Dalglish. He was that well got, Niall, and his name in the game was huge. That he had that, influence. So Liverpool against Rovers of a Tuesday night, that'll do.
Standard Tuesday evening for League of Ireland.
I wouldn't give Souness my jersey. He wanted to swap. I didn't want to give it to him. No. No, Graham, no, not for me. But that's the profile. And then at the time, after that match, Niall, Jim Beglin, the fullback, was transferred to Liverpool. He won a European Cup. But the point I'm making is exactly what you said there. The interest alone that Giles would have and he was putting fellas on the map, like Alan Camby, Liam Buckley. They were all transferred across the water,
How did that sort of, rise up in the influence there for Shamrock Rovers and stuff like that? How did that impact, say, on the rest of the league? I mean, did all the other teams get a bit of a bump and an interest in them as well?
Well, the funny thing about it, not only was it, see, Giles then, apart from anything else, and Milltown being Milltown, he created what I can only describe as one of the best surfaces that you would want to play football on. It was magnificent, Niall. He did a job. I don't know what groundsman or whatever, or the people, or as I would say, the Mick Cairnses of this world and Rovers mad. The ground, after pre-season, we weren't allowed to train or anything on it. And I remember the first game in Milltown after the Giles pre-season. I think we played Finn Harps or something like that. And it was a snooker table. He wanted to get all the basics stuff right. But equally, it had an unbelievable effect on the other teams. As if you can imagine Limerick, which was effectively a bog field or something like that, or Athlone at the time, coming to Milltown, it brought the best out of the other teams as well. So it was, you know what I mean? And the fact they were playing in their eyes against the Dumfries, the Tracys, the Giles, and every match, Niall, every match, and I'd say this whenever, was a cup final for the opposition. Every match, that way. You'd come off the pitch absolutely knackered after. It brought the best out of the opposition all the time. I don't think I ever remember a 6 or a 7-0 win in Milltown. It was always 2-1, 3-2, that way. Real battles. But that was because the Giles lended itself to that, his persona. Like, people wanted it on their wall chart, Niall, at the time, play Johnny Giles and beat them,
Yeah, absolutely.
He was still playing.
Yeah, it would have been a real feather in the cap for those other teams to be taking a scout like that,
Absolutely. But to this day, I'm sure there's people say, Giles, I played against him, that way.
Yeah.
And that was it. We were lucky to not only play with him, but to train with him and be around him. And, his professionalism, it's extraordinary.
Well, I mean,
So
the measure of the man. I mean, he's revered to this day. So it's
absolutely people. Even your podcast, it's extraordinary the knowledge of the game. He sees it, and he calls it, Niall, and he was brilliant for me. Like on the second year in Milltown for me under Giles, I won the Player of the Year. It was the first Shamrock Rovers supporters club Player of the Year, and when I tell you, Niall, underneath the main stand in Milltown at the time was was called the Hoops Club. Now, many a love story began in the Hoops Club, as happened because Rovers would have it, for 21st, and cabaret was there every Sunday night, whatever. But the night of the first, this was the first Shamrock Rovers supporters clubs. This is the supporters clubs around the city had come together, and they were voting for their first Player of the Year. So I remember being at the table at the time, Niall, and your Giles, obviously, Eamon Duffy, Ray Trade, Stevie Liney, Liam Buckley, Alan O'Neill, all of them, Noel Sinnott, Johnny Full. They were all there in terms of, like, these were international players. What was it? Dennis, I forget, Francis Burns from Manchester United. And I was there or whatever, and the next thing is the head of the supporters club got up and announced that the first Shamrock is Robbie Gaffney. I swear to God, Niall, you can talk about your Grammy Awards and your BAFTAs and whatever. I couldn't believe that I was now going to take the first Shamrock Rovers supporters club to get it from the supporters where I'd been 2-3 years earlier, that way, as to come back to me family back in the room. The place was jammers. It was packed beyond. It was jam packed or whatever. And I think I was walking around the city for a while on water, if you know what I mean, getting stopped and congratulated and whatever. And even in Mulvey Park, the house became a shrine for about a month. That way.
Yeah, I mean, this must have been, I mean, for players, I always know talking to players, like, to get an award from the fans means so much more, because it means so much to them. You know what I mean? And
it's extraordinary. But it was the point, Niall, that I was making, I didn't even think I'd be in the rec. It had a good year. I got Giles to give me, because he ran the international team. He had capped me at under 21 level against Poland. Yeah. And like, even when I went to the Green Isle Hotel, I knew nobody in the under 21 team at the time. The Packy Bonners, John Anderson's. Yeah, I knew nobody. I think one bloke off Southampton, Austin Hayes, asked me who I was. These, and you are? I said, Robbie Gaffney. I played for Shamrock Rovers. All right, yeah, all right, yeah. That way. Like, yeah. Giles was brilliant like that, Niall. To give a bloke like me, I'd never had a youth cap. I'd never had a schoolboy cap or whatever. And he's prepared to give me an under 21 cap against Poland. In itself, it just shows you, the measure of why, if he believed in you at all, Niall, he'd reward you. All you had to do was keep the head down and do your stuff.
And I mean, there's not much more you can ask from a manager or a coach or anything. I mean, if that's the reward you get for putting in the hard graft, I mean, that's how it should be, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was brilliant. Like, we won. We great ambitions within the club, and I loved being part of it. As I said, I would have done it for nothing. I just loved being a part of it and around it and everything else. We won the cup. We beat Sligo in 78 in cup final. Best forgotten, Niall, by the way. When I say cats and dogs for 90 minutes rain in Dalymount, it was a mud bath, and we beat them 1-0 penalty. And that was, I'm thinking, geez, that's unbelievable. We've now won a cup, an FAI Cup. I now have an FAI Cup medal. I'm only here sort of, so it just doesn't get, I've had an under 21 cap, that way. I thought that, because the word was among the supporters, we're going to win the European Cup next, that way. Yeah. that was the sort of, oh, this Rovers thing is mad. That, look what they have. It was extraordinary. Didn't turn out that way, but at the time, it was brilliant to be part of.
But you could probably see why the wave of expectation happened. I mean, the club, the way it was sort of progressing all the time. Even as you said, I mean, the pitch was being put in there. They were laying the foundation for success all the time, bringing in the players. Gilesy as a manager, you're winning fan awards. You're going on to be capped at under 21 level. You know what I mean? Like, life doesn't get any better, really. So you could see from a fan's point of view, looking out, they're going, this is the next step and the next step and the next step. And of course, it's so difficult to hold fan expectation, keep it grounded. You know what I mean? Because it just takes off.
Oh, that's brilliant, Niall. Like, within that era, Niall, is something that I missed. I haven't mentioned it to you yet. And like, not only did we win a cup, right, but as a result of winning an FAI Cup, Niall, Robbie Gaffney was now packing his bags to go to Reykjavik to play in a European game. There's another one you'd say, what? The chopper bike I keep thinking is not going to take it to Reykjavik, So that it and everything that goes with it. So we are now playing, Niall, in a European game away from home. And at the time, League of Ireland clubs didn't have great results in Europe, And we got them over and we bashed this Iceland crowd, bashed them home and away, if you remember. And for me, that's all part of what Giles and Shamrock Rovers is about. You just do it because it's Rovers, And that match against Home Farm seemed like 20 years ago, at the time. That you're now playing, you're coming up against these big blonde 6'4" Icelandic blokes, and a little 5'6" from Mulvey Park is getting on the ball. It's Europe. So Cup, Europe. The profile of Europe. Next round of the European draw. Unbelievable, Niall. Unbelievable.
I'm listening to you here now, and you're starting. I can understand now where the fans' expectation came from, because I can hear it in your own voice coming through nearly.
Niall, I couldn't believe when I got back to Mulvey Park, we just won that in Iceland. That way. Yeah. They were all around a wireless listening to the result. That way. A wireless, Niall. Yeah. Not Sky Sports. Yeah, mad stuff. It was brilliant era, brilliant time.
I'm hoping that chopper bike is hanging in a museum somewhere. Yeah.
I got slaughtered about it. Mick Kearns and Mick McCarthy and a few other Rovers. I think that they said that there should be in Tallaght Stadium now a chopper bike.
Yeah, bronzed up like a statue outside the ground or something like that.
Yeah, there you have it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I'm sure the lads are saying. Great. I'm sure the lads are saying to you, when you ever go and get yourself a card, you're saying, so what would I want with a card? I only live up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's what I'm saying. It was brilliant, brilliant, Niall, and to see, the profile of the club and so on, in the draw, Shamrock, it was just brilliant, really good, unforgettable.
Yeah. So tell me then, we move on to UCD, and the move comes about for UCD. Tell me how that came about. That must have been an interesting time for you, being such a Rover staunch man, moving on to UCD. How was the nerves and all at that time?
Oh yeah, well it's ironic, Niall, because at the time it was the end of the Giles era, and Giles had announced that he was going to take over. I think it was Vancouver Whitecaps in Canada, and he was leaving, and like everything else, there'd be a new broom, and I still thought maybe I had a chance, but Jim McLaughlin then came in, and in the end he had a absolutely brilliant, the brilliant 4 in a row team, but the two players of the Giles team, if you know what I mean, who would have been seen as the Rovers lads, was myself and Alan O'Neill, and in the end, Jim McLaughlin had picked his team, if you know what I mean. And we were persona non grata in the sense that, no, I think I could have stayed at some level, but you don't want to be around if you're not wanted, this type of thing. And at the time, the late Tony O'Neill from UCD was looking at introducing semi-professional football into UCD, and they offered myself and Alan a contract. I mean, like you said, Niall, we thinking, Jesus, to leave Rovers to go to UCD, come on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And Tony O'Neill was a smashing bloke, really lovely man, God rest him. And myself and Naylor met, the two of us met together. We said, yeah, you know what, we'll give it a go for 2 years and see how it goes. And we literally both signed on the same evening and joined UCD. And lo and behold, it had to be written in the stars, Niall. The first year, we get all the way to the FAI Cup final. Who do we meet? Shamrock Rovers. And myself and Naylor are sitting in the dressing room and said, can you believe this? How do we even go out here on the Daily Mount? You know what I mean? And I've half a Mulvey Park disowned me. You know that way? The chopper bike had been replaced now at this stage, and now a Go Faster Corolla Toyota. So we ended up beating Rovers, the great 4 in a row team. We beat them 2-1 over 2 legs. And I think, Robbie, it must be written in the stars for you. You've now won a cup medal for UCD, who would never in their history, Niall, won it. And if the roles had been reversed, they'd been partying on the streets if it had been Rovers, if you know what I mean. UCD won it, and as if it was part of going to college. You know, you got your exams, so you move on.
Yeah.
And then we're waiting, Niall, for 2 months later, and the draw comes out, and it's UCD versus Everton in the Cup Winners' Cup. French. Yes.
How did it feel? How did it feel in the cup final? First of all, going out and like you're lined up against all these Rovers players, and you're putting on a UCD jersey. How did that feel? That must have felt strange, did it?
Niall, the strangest feeling, because underneath the stand where all the Rovers fans gather, right? Me and Naylor are warming up, whatever, and I'm nearly afraid because I know that a good portion of the people that's looking at me as if to say, what are you doing? You know, blah, blah. Yeah. And out of nowhere, Niall, they start chanting my name. It was like, he's still one of us type of thing, you know that way.
The prodigal son type of thing.
Prodigal son. Yeah. We'll give him one chant, and that'll be it. You know that. Yeah.
I'd say that changed when the winner went in, did it?
Oh no, yeah. No, you haven't. But that's what I'm saying. It was the strangest feeling. It was the strangest feeling, Niall, going to the match. It was the strangest feeling playing in the match. But it was the complete strangest feeling when you won the match. You know that way? Like, what do we do? Do we actually celebrate, or do we just say, look, give the medals back? You know?
Yeah,
mad.
You swap jerseys and you get out of there as quick as you can.
As quick as possible, you know.
What was the build-up? What was the build-up that week in the Gaffney household? That must have been strange.
Niall, we trained, obviously, UCD, you couldn't get away from it, because UCD, as the fella said, is in the parish of Milltown, right? So I'm going training 3 nights a week, Niall, running the gauntlet going through Mulvey Park or whatever. And actually, I was living in Ballantyre, the same or whatever. I was getting the head turning. You Judas, the whole lot. I said, Jesus, I just want this match over with. You know that way? Just can we get it over with?
You would have been better off going across Sandyford and down through Stallard if you avoided it all into UCD.
And the other thing about it, Niall, was I didn't think we'd have a chance. This was the 4 in a row team, you know what I mean, who were winning all round themselves. And UCD, you know, the only thing that UCD were winning at the time was what's known as the Collingwood Cup. And they won that every year because they only played 2 other universities, I think, you know that way. And that was it. This is the FAI Cup. This is a totally different. I didn't think we had a chance. I thought keep the score respectable and we'll put it down to it was a good day out type of thing, but not to win it, you know.
So then as you said, you go on and you draw Everton then in the Cup Winners' Cup. And to preface this, I mean, we're talking here Neville Southall, Peter Reid, Kevin Sheedy no less, you know, Andy Gray and Graham Sharp. And this is the Everton side. I remember Kevin Sheedy well because those goals he scored for Ireland. And I remember we used to always go up to Pennies and get the Kevin Sheedy t-shirts during 88 and 90 and all. It was brilliant. So how did that feel? I mean, one thing about going up against your beloved Rovers in the cup final and winning, and then drawing Everton.
Yeah.
How was that?
That night was that. Niall, I have to share this with you. This is unbelievable. So I lived in Ballantyre at the time, and my wife Gwen was expecting my second boy. So Robbie Jr. was tucked up in bed, and we were expecting Jason, who was the season ticket holder now in Rovers, whatever. And Gwen was expecting Jason. And I had my Umbro bag, Niall, lying in the bed, thinking of Peter Reid. And beside me was my wife, Gwen, who was about to give birth or whatever, soon, but we didn't know when. And she said, Robbie, we have to go to the Coombe now. I said, what, Gwen? We have to go to the Coombe. And into the car. I'd no petrol, Niall. Stopped at the garage in Rosemount, put €10 or whatever it was into it, and told your man behind the desk, I'll get him again. I'd no money, whatever. I legged it into the Coombe. Jason was brought into the world. Gwen brought Jason into the world. I rang her father at something like 5:30 in the morning. I said, Sean, can you give me a dig out? I'm playing Everton tomorrow. And back home, back to the airport on a plane. I was buzzing from the time I got to Goodison Park, if you know what I mean. It was the maddest feeling. And then it was in the programme. They had number 8, UCD, Robbie Gaffney, ex-Shamrock, whose wife, Gwen, had just given birth. So I took all ownership of that. I had nothing to do with it, no, nothing. Whoever put that in was unbelievable. And that's when you realised this is Goodison. This is the Cup Winners' Cup. This is the SARS we are playing against. And we drawn 0-0 in Dublin, Niall. So we held them in Dublin. And Graham Sharp got the winner over there, you know. And then we hit the bar. We could have gone through on away goals. So at the end of the game, I went in. Their manager at the time was Howard Kendall. And I went in to get my jersey signed for Jason, whatever. And he was going ballistic because in his eyes, playing against part-timers, he went ballistic against them. But we ended up with Kevin Sheedy, the great Kevin Sheedy afterwards. No, I look on the thing. It was a brilliant occasion, brilliant experience playing Goodison. I think it was just under, there was 28,000, I think, at it, which at the time was great. I mean, they knew nothing about us. First game. But it was brilliant. And they subsequently went on and won it. They won it that year. They beat Rapid Vienna, I think, in the final.
Now, I was listening to an interview the other day with you before the podcast, and being a father myself of 3, and I had all 3 in the Coombe, and I concur with what you said on this interview, where you said the best tea and toast in this country comes from the Coombe Hospital.
Without a shadow of doubt. Niall, to this day, Gwen gives me stick. When they came in with the tea and toast, my wife, I grabbed it and said, Nurse, yeah. I said, Nurse, I'm going to play against Everton. That is so good of you. No, it's not for you. I had it already eaten, Niall. It was gone. It was down the throat and gone down the steps. They called him in mate. Yeah.
I did the same twice. And she still hasn't forgiven me.
There you go. So I had the tea and toast. That was me pre-match meal, so to speak. And Gonzo, out of the Coombe, down the steps, gone. Yeah. So we both have that in common, Niall.
So that's incredible, isn't it? Like it's incredible. It's just, you see the way it's building here, even in the chat, just from tier to tier to tier to tier.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You know, it's only when you see that it's fantastic. Yeah. Niall, the night in Goodison was a special occasion, Niall, a special occasion.
Yeah, and for people who don't realise, this is the same Everton team, as far as I know, went on and did a Cup and League double that year.
Yeah, that's right. You have it in one. You have it in one. And I looked at, funny enough, Niall, there's a great moment that if you ever get a chance on YouTube, right? Diego Maradona nutmegged Peter Reid in the World Cup. Remember the hand of God goal?
Yeah.
The hand of God. He nutmegged him or whatever. There's only one other person nutmegged Peter Reid, by the way, and you're talking to him now, and I've been living on it for 30 years in Goodison. And Reedy, as I call him, he's often in touch, but I don't take his calls, Niall. It happened. He should get over it. That's a joke.
Yeah, and he went on himself to be. I mean, he was a manager for Sunderland and all, wasn't he? He did very well at Sunderland.
He was brilliant. He was a brilliant player, by the way. But I'm just saying, and a real competitor, Niall. You know what I mean? Real competitor. But I've lived off the nutmeg in Goodison. You know, it was a little moment.
That's one of those moments where you should stitch both videos together and play them side by side. You know, really good.
I thought Diego would get in touch with me, being the only one that did it to him as well, but he never bothered. It's disappointed.
So tell us then, you know, then you know, it comes time for Rovers to leave Milltown.
Yeah.
And the fans started the campaign to keep it there as much as they could. But as everything at that time in Ireland, it was all about construction, and construction companies were just taking over all the land. And the deals were, I remember that was the kind of the first real property bubble, if I can remember. And like the you know, land was going for huge money. They probably done a huge deal with the construction company at the time that they couldn't refuse. What was your feeling at the time about the move out?
Well, I was devastated, Niall. I was devastated, even though I mean, I knew what Milltown meant to Rovers people, and it's their home, and it was their home. It was always recognised as their home. It was the home of brilliant occasions, brilliant games, brilliant people. It was a big social outlet, whatever. And the group that got involved, I really thought they had a chance. They were called Cram, Keep Rovers at Milltown. And there was some heavy hitters, which I thought, Niall, were at the forefront of Irish business that would have a chance. And the fact that it was a sporting arena, it was a sporting occasion. You know, it just shows you at the time, and I think you hit it on the head there, that money talks, because the group, I remember Cram, and they raised substantial money, but I think the substantial money was all lost on court cases, and it became, Niall, it was a debt in the family for a lot of people, both people who were supporting, who played, who were involved, who worked there, who socialized there. It was it was grief. There was grief on the streets of, and not only with Rovers people, with, people who we discussed earlier, Niall, that enjoyed coming to Rovers, to play in Rovers, to support their team in Rovers. You know what I mean? Everything about Rovers, and to see it gone to a construction site, beggared belief at the time. Jeez, it was hard to take.
Yeah, it was very much a community-based club, wasn't it? Like, there was a close-knit club there in terms of the supporters and everything. A lot of it was from the local community. So to have it kind of moving out, these were saying.
But Niall, what you also forget is, not only was it local and it was community-based, right? But at the time, Niall, in the Rovers era, there was football special buses leaving Hawkins Street from people all around the city, from north side of Dublin, west of the city, east of the city, Ringsend, whatever. It was more more of a brand than a community, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like those football buses, the football buses, Niall, of which my dad was one of they could be packed depending on the occasion and the game, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It was more than sort of community. It was a brand. It was a brand of Irish football that at the time was lost. That was the real killer. This was something, Jesus, can't believe Rovers have lost Milltown,
I remember even the protest march as well. Even the marches that used to come right down into Milltown and everything, where the fan base was protesting against it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I just thought, Niall, at the time that there were at that particular time the right people were involved to do the right thing, if you know what I mean. But they were up against it as it happens, and to lose it and then be homeless, Niall, for that amount of time, they were traveling the roads. It's hard to believe what you see now.
Yeah, for a club the size of it, it was
and the network of people that stuck with it, and then you see to this day, the Real Madrid's, Ronaldo making his debut up there. You know what I mean? And Tala, it's huge credit, Niall, huge credit to the people that loved and believed that the brand, and that's what I keep saying to you, it's more that it's the brand that is Shamrock Rovers that's kept it alive to where it is today, you know?
Absolutely. I'm going to Park Rovers for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to talk to you about St. Pat's.
Yeah.
St. Pat's would be close to my own heart as well, because I went to school with a couple of lads that ended up going to St. Pat's. Willie Burke would have been there.
Yeah.
Good lad, Willie Burke played at the back for them. He was a good skill mate of mine. I went to Benilda's College with Willie up on the Upper Kilmacud Road.
Yeah.
And with James Keddy, who ended up playing for Rovers.
James Keddy, smashing player.
Yeah, absolutely great player and a lovely fella as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your time at St. Pat's and winning the league and, you know, Pat Fenlon.
Well, funny enough, Niall, I'd be outside of Johnny Doyle in relation to whatever. One bloke in Irish football for me has stood out head and shoulders above everybody else, and that's Brian Kerr. Head and shoulders, Niall. His knowledge, his enthusiasm for the game is unbelievable. And at the time, Brian approached me to sign for Pats, and he just felt, funny enough, it's only when you talk now, he just felt there was something lucky about me. I don't know about being a player, but he just felt there was something lucky that wherever I went, something happened, if you know what I mean. And that was his, you know, I could do a job for him as well. But in the bigger scheme of things, whatever, I remember signing, I was delighted to sign for him. And I remember on the first training session, you know, when it was my first time to meet Pat Fenlon, and we're lifelong friends now to this day. But could you imagine, Niall, that he would play Pat Fenlon and Robbie Gaffney against Steaua Bucharest in the UEFA Cup, you know, 2 5'5" midgets from Dublin. But he believed in it. And if you look at Brian, you know, with any of the players, he's a brilliant man manager, and he saw it different. I had a brilliant time with Pat. Like I broke the leg on the first game, Niall, double break against Limerick away. And I remember Brian saying to me afterwards or something like that, even though I'd broken the leg and my first game back was in Europe against Steaua Bucharest, Pats had won the league, if you know what I mean. So he felt that the Gaffney factor in some way, even though I played no role in it, you know, it was that. And then I got my feet under the table with him, you know, and played against Hearts home and away, and 2 great games against him. But Pat's had a really good team, Niall, really good team. Curtis Fleming was terrific. Mark Ennis up front was just a goal scorer. Nutsy was different class as a footballer. An absolutely brilliant player. Mick Moody, Mark Negan, Damien Bourne, Maurice O'Driscoll. They're smashing players. But the main factor of it, Niall, was Brian. Brian could change things around, and he proved that. And he proved that any time or anywhere he went, if you know what I mean. Like, he changed the Pats team around when my chapter was over, and he did it again. You know, that's how good he is, or how good he was. And I went on national radio, Niall, to say at the time, how he was lost to Irish football is beyond me, and still to this day beyond me, you know. But the Pats, I really enjoyed the Pats era, and mainly down to Brian, you know.
He's a real footballing man, isn't he? Like, he lives and breathes football. And you can even see it to him today, even on telly when he's doing the commentary and all, you know. His commentary is kind of that real kind of, you know, like pub street style sort of commentary, like as if we were commentating on the game. He's real down to earth, and he's still kind of like one of the lads in the way he commentates and all, you know what I mean?
No, everything about it, Niall. I remember going when I had the double break. I remember going to visit. I went up to him in Green Hills, up to the house. I don't know what the occasion was, and I might have been going up to collect me a couple of quid. You never know. But anyway, um, it was my first time. I was in the house with him, Niall. I was in the house, and this is away from the training ground. This is away from Richmond Park and whatever. And I was in the little room with him, and oh, sweet mother of Jesus, it was like a bomb had hit it. There was A4 pages, Niall, of your name, my strengths, my weakness. You know that way.
Yeah.
He analysed everything till the int, and that's how, you know, whether you were playing Turles Town or Hearts or Steaua Bucharest, he did the very, very same. Extraordinary insight, commitment to it. You know, every detail, Niall. I mean, every detail was covered.
Way ahead of himself by the sounds. Like, I can imagine going into his house and his walls, like, you know, one of those FBI rooms or something like that, with just pages stuck all over the wall, like a big investigation or something. You know? Unbelievable. Like. But yeah, I'd say his brain never stops thinking about football 24/7.
Absolutely. Niall, I must give you this one, and it'll stay with me or whatever. At the time in Pats, was it Dynamo Bucharest? Sorry, we drew Dynamo Bucharest. I think it was Steaua Bucharest. But anyway, drew Dynamo Bucharest. And Brian had an assistant at the time called Billy Baxter. Lovely, lovely man. Billy Baxter, Brian had brought him from Monaghan, and Billy was a great studier of the game. But Brian had asked him to come back to us about Dynamo Bucharest, you know, and Billy met us in the dressing room, and I thought this one sums up Brian. So we were meeting Niall before flying to Bucharest to play them. So say, for example, this is a Wednesday night and we're flying out Thursday, right? We'd done our training, whatever. And Billy was giving out the team about Bucharest. And he was saying to Brian, number one would be Komalovic or whatever. And Komalovic is 6'6", and Fiorentina are interested in signing for €1 million. Very good shot stopper, very good. Then he went on. Number 2 is Kolanami, whatever. And he's, Niall, he went through, and at number 8, when he was saying that the guy that missed the Tomofty was the guy, he missed the penalty against Ireland, the Packy Bonner saved, whatever, Tomofty. He says, number 8, Lilian Tomofty, a fine player, kicks with both left and right, and and again, AC Milan. And next to Brian says, Jesus, Billy, are any of them brutal? You know? Because we're all sitting there, Niall, thinking, we're playing word beaters. You know, it was the way Brian cut me short. Are any of them brutal?
And you know something, I can exactly see Brian in the dressing room saying that as well, you know. Yeah. I mean, give it up, will you?
I was going to say, leave it out, Billy, for chasing. You have me believing, what's the point of even getting on the plane? And I just thought it was brilliant, a double act, how they operated, you know. It was great time.
I can imagine Brian nearly turned around saying, are any of our lads going to Real Madrid or Barcelona? What's the story?
Yeah. Like, we'd arrived with Dunstore bags and all, with the bags, and you know, these. It's just brilliant. What a story. Yeah. Are any of them brutal? that was I thought that summed up to a large extent the Pats era. Brilliant, great time.
I presume that was the end of Billy's conversation. He stopped at number 8 then and just headed off.
He left it. He hadn't got to the real multi-millionaires that were further up the pitch.
Brian obviously knew what was coming.
He knew. Are any of them brutal? Are any of them brutal? Brilliant, Niall.
I gotta take you back to 2006. I'm gonna return to Shamrock Rovers, and an event that I'm sure is huge in your football career. You were inducted into the Rovers Hall of Fame. Talk to me about that.
Niall, that is when the cup final was on that day, and I go to every FAI Cup final anyway, and you know, Jason and Robbie would come with me or whatever. It's a day out for us, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I knew there was something up that day, Niall, because Alan O'Neill, who had, as I say, we started off together effectively he arrived in Lansdowne as well, and a few of the Rovers lads, I thought, looking back at it now, I'm thinking, what's this all about? Because they had me drinking bottles of Corona, if you know what I mean, and everything was being very civilized. Whereas normally on a day out, it's on every man for himself, and it's the kebab, that way. I'm thinking whatever. So then it was a suggestion made at the end, Niall, that we make our way into town, So yeah, okay, cup final into town, whatever. And then I knew coming around there at Stephen's Green, what's the venue? It's changed hands a couple. But anyway, I knew there was something up. And when I got in, Niall, I mean, my wife Gwen was there, my daughter Sarah Jane, Robbie, Jason, and I thought, oh, now there's something, whatever. And they literally had it to a T. The place was jammers, Niall. And they announced me then into the Hall of Fame. First time ever. Now, you hear me on talking to you. I'm not normally stuck for a few words. I looked out, Niall, at all the people I'd got to know over the years, all friends now today, all there with their families, if you know what I mean. And Alan O'Neill with his family. And I just thought, my God, Robbie, from the day you played home farm when Sean Carroll asked you, would you come down for trial? That way, on the chopper bike to this, I thought it was a brilliant end to the football chapter, if you know what I mean, Niall. Like, if that was it for anybody else, but for me, that was just a wonderful, to be in held in that regard was fantastic. That's something won't be taken away,
And you had no idea. No idea at all.
Not a clue, not a diggy board, but looking back, the hook, line, and sinker I was stitched, everything about it that day, and I knew it. Surrounded, I think they put a posse, Niall, you know what I mean? They put a posse out, keep them together, keep them, that way. Yeah, and I knew it then when I saw Gwen and Sarah Jane and the family there. So
it wasn't your typical FAI Cup final day. The lads were acting nearly like carers to get you to the end game.
Now you have it. It was completely staged, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant, Niall. I mean,
So this was like your Oscars. This was your Jim Sheridan movie moment, really, wasn't it? When you think about it, this was like the ending of a journey, really, with Shamrock.
Well, if you look at it, Niall, and I started with when I was saying when I got that. The supporters player of the year, I thought, you can keep your Oscars and your BAFTAs, whatever. Then an FAI Cup final winner, whatever. Then, where, with Pats and UCD and so on. But to be inducted into the Rovers thing, that was now that was the BAFTAs and the the Emmys and whatever it was, the Oscars all rolled into one. Brilliant, Niall. Brilliant. Yeah. That was a chap. You say, right, you can live on that. I think I still do in the Ballantyre house. I bored them all with that one, Niall,
You never get bored of those stories. These are priceless. You can't pay for this,
Yeah, so that was a brilliant occasion.
So tell us this. Always when I get ex-players on, I always ask out on our socials people to send in a few questions. So I got a couple of questions in here that we never give them away. So you've kind of nearly answered it probably, but the highlight of the career, what was the highlight?
Oh, the highlight of my whole football career was signing for Shamrock Rovers. Excellent. That was it.
That was the pathway to everything else. Really.
Without a doubt, nothing, absolutely nothing but that. Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite player that you played with, and you'd probably give me a list of about 20, but if one comes to mind or two.
Alan O'Neill, goalkeeper, a brilliant professional. He was capped, I think, 3 times. Niall, thought he, and with me in the trenches, on a couple of teams, but terrific teammate, great friend. Yeah. So, and I played with some great players, Niall. Great players, but he was up there,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The toughest player you ever played against?
Yeah. Well, Reedy be disappointed if I don't mention him. But no, let me see, the toughest player, I'd say Paul Doolan. No, that just jumped. Paul Doolan was a brilliant athlete, really brilliant Rovers midfield. But actually, he was the same when he went to Derry. He was brilliant when he played. Yeah, he just jumped out there now, and I didn't even give that a thought. No, you know, just Paul Doolan.
Yeah, that's one of those questions where you're glad you played with Joylesy and not necessarily against him. Because Joylesy was a tough player back in the day.
Oh, listen, he could handle himself, and people in the game and across the water said the stories about him. But yeah, he was. But Joylesy was a brilliant player, Niall. He was just brilliant. But Naylor had started off with me and ended effectively with me, and all that way. So, but Paul Doolan was great.
So this one's a good one for you now. This is one that always people have to have a good think about. If you could have dinner with any player, past or present, who would you go out and have dinner with?
Jesus, Niall.
You can give me two if you want. You can give me one that you played against or played with, and one that's out there at the moment or whenever. It doesn't.
Well, funny. This is a mad one, Niall, and I would have loved. I would have loved really to get. When we was with Rovers and we played in Reykjavik, we had to stop in Glasgow, so we trained with Celtic. Yeah. We trained with Celtic, and I remember we had the opportunity to we had lunch with Celtic at the time, and the fullback there was a Scottish fullback, and he was a Celtic fullback, and whatever reason the two of us just sat down together, and he was telling me about Celtic had played Fran Reykjavik a year or 2 years earlier. Fullback called Danny McGrain. And I just found him to be really interesting. I'd loved to get more into his head, if you know what I mean. He was somebody that I would have loved to got to know, if you know what I mean, because I'd only spent 1 hour. We did the training. Then we went for lunch, and I think we were sort of all paired off.
Yeah,
I would have loved to share his company about, you know, Rangers games, European games, Celtic Park, all that. So I would have loved that. And then if there was somebody else, it'd have to be Reedy, to be honest. He comes across as a brilliant bloke, you know. Yeah. Now that's what I was saying to you. I wonder, does he mention me on his night outs? I don't think so, but I'd say, I'd love to get to know him, you know. Yeah. So they're me too.
I'd wonder, would Reedy pick up the bill? That's the only thing for the dinner. That'd be an interesting.
Yeah, but there'd be a pair of us in that now, Niall. You know what I mean? You'd be a pair of us in that.
There'd only be one winner.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'd love that. I'd love to, you know, particularly when I saw him in the World Cup and so on. And he was actually bang on to us both home and away, with his treatment of us. You know, that way he went out of his way. Yeah. Like that McGrain and Reid.
Brilliant. Well, Robbie, this has been an absolute pleasure for me. I mean, I've enjoyed this so much. Like, I think we've been on now nearly an hour, and it feels like 15 minutes. Like such a trip down memory lane.
I really enjoyed it, Niall. Really enjoyed it. Well done. Really enjoyed it. It was, you know, great stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. As always, we're on YouTube on the Dynamo Podcast Network. So head over there and hit a subscribe and hit that bell notification button so you'll see all our latest content. And Robbie, listen, we really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure. Niall, look after yourself. The best of luck. Stay safe.
And you, bud. Thanks a million. Cheers.
No problem. Take care. Bye-bye.